And welcome everybody to the latest edition of Paws Up Preview as the FIU Panthers get ready for their homecoming matchup against the Monmouth Hawks of FCS. I'm Jake Gibson. That's my friend and co-host Kevin Barral. And Kevin, I know we got hit with a reality check last week, right? It was not a fun day against the FAU Owls. The weather didn't help. 1 hour, 48-minute rain delay. And then what happened next? Not good. But this is still a very young season for FIU, and there's a lot of room for improvement on the team. And I think if they can get a win against the Monmouth Hawks right before Conference USA play begins, it's going to give the whole team a boost.
Yeah, definitely. And, coming into the season, the big thing was, how will you come out of conference play? Obviously, Indiana was never going to really look like a win.
Mm-hmm.
Central Michigan was honestly a toss-up. Ended up not really that really didn't end up being the case. FAU kind of expected to win that one, and now Monmouth, that's a must-win game. And honestly, right now, that is a must-win game. That is a game that you need to win. I mean, to go into conference play feeling somewhat good, knowing that you have the chance to really go out in conference play and really dominate this league. But again, it was a tough loss against FAU, 38-20 final. Kewan Jenkins really struggled towards the real start of the game. 3 interceptions, the final one coming in the fourth quarter. But still, I mean, he played pretty well, honestly. 21 of 35, 281 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think that's the most thrown in a single game. So good for him. At the same time, it's the most interceptions he's also thrown in his career.
Yeah.
So a lot of ways to look at it. On top of that, he was able to spread out the ball really well, which I like to see. Dean Patterson, 5 targets. Eric Rivers with 4. Then Burris. I want to say it's Saquon Nopierre with 3. And then Desna Washington with 2. So definitely spreading out the ball again. No real wide receiver one, which I'm totally fine with. Don't really need one. And then on the defensive side, Travion Barnes really, really impressed with 15 total tackles. At the moment, a career high. Obviously, it's his first year in the FBS level. But overall, a lot of positives. Kewan's decision-making wasn't very good, to be honest with you. Could have been a lot better overall. I mean, you look at the first play, the first interception, throwing it to 3 defenders. I know he's made those plays before. Coach Mack has said that. But when you have a first down situation, I don't really think you need to make that type of a play. The second interception was a little weird because it wasn't a bad read by any means. It was actually a pretty good read. Probably would have been a touchdown had the guy caught it. I just think it was a very poorly thrown ball. It was like very softly thrown. It was like a little bloop that gave the defender enough time to go back there and make that interception. And then the final one was another bad read by Kewan, throwing it to 2 defenders there. And then, funny enough, the former Maine cornerback, Bugs, Kazir Brown, I think is what his name is called, made that interception. So overall, tough night for Kewan. Still he made some good decisions as well. I got to give him credit. 2 very nice touchdown passes there in the fourth quarter to try to get some momentum going. Aside from that, I wish they would have ran the ball a little bit more after seeing their struggles against the run against Michigan State. And obviously, you can't really say the same towards Army, and that's something that Coach Mack noted. But still, I mean, when your defense is overall just struggling against the run, you would like to see them attack that a little bit more. But the final guy that deserves a shout out, once again, Brian Blades, 3rd graded cornerback in the country according to PFF. So he had another huge week. But a lot to dive into, obviously, with Monmouth, who Coach Mack is not taking lightly whatsoever. And should be a big game for FIU as they try to get back to 500 going into conference play.
Yeah, and it was just it was a wild string of emotions to start that game, Kevin, because FIU's offense came out of the gates swinging and dominated, and I believe a 3-play drive that ended with an FIU touchdown, and you kind of felt to yourself, all right, FIU's offense looks in this thing. They look like they're ready to potentially dominate. And then everything's just sort of turned around. Obviously, I know FAU made adjustments on the fly as the game progressed, but it really did feel like for the remainder of the first half and into the third quarter a bit, they pretty much locked down Kewan Jenkins and the offense. Just what did FAU do right on defense to limit the explosive plays that we saw in that first drive of the game?
I'm not sure because I don't think FAU really made much adjustments defensively, honestly. I mean, they made some good plays. Shout out to them. I just think it came down to FIU. They really lost this game. They handed the game to FAU with the mistakes. Obviously, you look at the two fumbles, one on Keywan, which I do think was a fumble. The Dean Patterson one is a lot closer than it seems like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think it was, unfortunately, that really should have been overturned, and that would have put FIU in the red zone.
I think so too.
But again, there was a missed kick by Alejandro Prado. Chase Gabriel, I mean, just wishing him the best. Seems like he's going through something pretty big from what Coach Max said. Non-football related injury, not life-threatening, thankfully, and obviously not football threatening, like not career-ending injury by any means. But seems like he's going to be out for a while. But again, Alejandro Prado missed the field goal. Could have been up 10 zip right away. And FIU had a lot of chances. I mean, you go through these drive charts for both teams. FIU had a really good shot, and it ended with FAU punting 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 of their first drives were all punts. So meaning the defense really got it going really quickly. I mean, that's the one thing that we've been noting, that this defense needs to come out of the gate swinging, and they did. And then just unfortunately that second quarters were really killed them. I mean, 2 straight touchdown drives, a field goal. Then you have 3 straight touchdown drives, which all came, I believe, more in the second quarter, 1 in the second, 2 in the third.
Yeah.
So it also didn't help that FAU received the ball to begin that third quarter, because they dominated time of possession there.
They
that
did.
One drive I look at, and they really dominated time of possession, 37 minutes to 22 minutes. And again, 22 minutes isn't bad overall, but when you're being dominated as much as you did with 37, definitely something that hurt FIU. And honestly, they weren't that bad as you may think. I mean, FIU had 368 total yards of offense. I really wish they just would have ran the ball a little bit more. KJ has been really good. Flex got a decent amount of reps. Could have, he was pretty good. Shamari's still struggling a little bit. I think he'll have a good opportunity against the FCS opponent. But yeah, I mean, FIU honestly handed themselves the game. I really didn't see anything out of FAU that told me that they're going to turn this thing around. Now, they may beat UConn, but I really don't know how they'll look in conference play. And honestly, don't think they'll look really good.
I can't wait for those FAU hate watches as the season progresses, seeing how the
I don't even think we deserve to be on to hate watch them.
that does sting, though, and I'm glad you mentioned it, that the fact that they only got 87 total rushing yards in that game, considering how, I mean, just downright bad FAU's rush defense was the week prior against Army. Granted, I know Army's offense is a whole bag of tricks that don't even want to delve into, but yeah, that was tough to see. You had mentioned Travion Barnes. He had a good game. FIU's defense, for the most part, well, yeah, like you had mentioned, was good. I think the secondary was not that bad. It's just that when the offense fumbles so much and you're on the field for as long as you happen to be on defense, you're eventually going to get gassed. You're going to struggle, and the offense is going to of the opposing team is going to capitalize off that. I don't think Fancher had a great game. I don't think any big name player for FAU had an amazing game.
Wait a minute. Well, I mean, dude, their running back literally ran for 3 touchdowns. That's their top back, and I think it's worth noting that, when we're talking to Travion, it's just like you're going from a guy in Joe Labus and I guess Curtis Rower, who are guys who really don't scramble too much. They're really into pocket quarterbacks. And then you go to Cam Fancher, who probably will be the most, well, aside maybe from Caden Salter when they face Liberty in their first road trip of the conference season, he will be by far the most dual threat quarterback they will have to face. Yeah. And that certainly doesn't allow you to really get set on time. Like we saw that on the 4th down play that they ran for the touchdown. So yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. Fancher didn't have a great game by any means, but I mean, man, he did what he had to do. I mean, 14 for 26 with 161 yards. Didn't even have to for a touchdown. He ran in for a touchdown of his own, ran for 64 yards. I mean, 54% completion rate. He wasn't great. FIU's defense, as you said, their secondary was really good. Their safeties were really good when they came in. Unfortunately, JoJo Evans was ejected from the game due to a targeting call. He will play this week against Monmouth, thankfully. But yeah, tough one there for sure. They really struggled to stop the run, and I mean, they gave up 259 yards of rush offense, and I don't think that'll be the case come this week against Monmouth. Their run game isn't the greatest in the FCS. I think I think the secondary is what will be challenged big time, especially when we'll get into Monmouth a little bit more, and we have a great interview with our Monmouth I guess reporter in this case. Yeah. He talked a little bit about Josh Derry and what he presents to FIU, and Josh Derry was a gold medalist in high school, so that guy is a track star.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There was another Panther, I believe, later in the game who was called for targeting. However, thankfully they got that play reversed. Do you remember who the Panther
Elijah
was?
Anderson Taylor. Yeah.
Anderson Taylor. Okay. Yeah, you had mentioned it. Just FAU did what FIU did against Central Michigan. They did not turn the ball over, and every single time they got an opportunity, they made the most out of it. So, it's tough to see. Obviously, if this was a loss to any other school in the nation, I'd feel all right. You just got to move on. The fact that it's against, granted, the Owl's Nest people were very nice to us, and we had a pleasant time at their
Well,
stadium.
most
But
of them,
God
yeah.
damn it, I'm tired of seeing them lose to this Owl squad. I believe it's 7 straight losses now to that team, and I
And
mean,
granted, this was one of the closer Shula Bowls
it
that
was close, but
we have played. I mean, since 26. I mean, every Shula Bowl since the last time FIU has won has been a blowout. So definitely not. I would
it's
say
close.
it's
I
encouraging.
don't think it's as
It,
close.
it allows you to think that FIU will beat FAU hopefully next year at home at Pitbull Stadium. The vibes will
Fingers
be a little bit
crossed.
better. So I think FIU fans, and also it's worth noting, FIU fans did show up and show out.
They
Little by
did.
little, you would hear the FIU chants in the crowd. And I mean, shout out to FIU Athletics and the branding and what they did, because they really stepped up with that $5 deal for the pizza and
That was fire.
road trip up and back. I mean,
That
that couldn't have gone any better for them.
Yeah, and just final thoughts, Kevin, about this game. Don't want to think too much about it, because it sucks it sucks to have to think about how. By the way, I didn't realize at the time how much of a target on FIU's back there would be from this Pitbull deal. But that one video FAU put out, you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It really sucks. It
wasn't
it
even
was
that.
bad.
Like, the video was funny and all, but like the one that killed me was the Panther pack when they started smoking in the club in the locker room. That was a rough. That was
To
a
be
rough.
fair, everyone kind of does that after like a bowl game or a big one.
Yeah, but I don't even. I mean, that's probably the only bowl game they're gonna kind of play this year. I don't think they're making a bowl game. Honestly,
is that your official prediction? FAU's not making it to a bowl game?
Sure.
All right, I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't think they're very good.
All righty. Let's just move on. Don't want to talk too much about that FIU game. We got to move on, and we got to get into the homecoming talk. Kevin, the vibes are still there. The alumni is coming back to Pitbull Stadium. It should be a great crowd as the FIU Panthers look to get back to 500 as they take on the Monmouth Hawks. Now, the Hawks, they're FCS, right? FIU does not have the best track record. Granted, they do know how to beat FCS teams often. As a matter of fact, they played teams from the CCA or the CAA quite often. You have Bryant, you have New Hampshire a few years ago, you have Maine last year. Monmouth overall had a bad 2023 season. They went 4-7. So far this year, they're 1-2. They lost to both Eastern Washington and Lafayette, but they destroyed Maine, which was interesting to see. Now they take on FIU. At first glance, it feels like there are tiers, right? There's a good tier list of FCS teams. There's a bad tier list of FCS teams. Before Saturday, I would have told you Monmouth was in the bad tier because of their first 2 games. But the fact that they look so good against Maine, granted, Maine is Maine. But I feel like they're in the middle now. The sort of the middle tier, that they have potential, and their offense looked really good.
Yeah, right now they're the second best offense in the FCS, and we kind of touched on it a little bit. Their quarterback, Derek Robertson, former Maine quarterback who we saw last year against
213
FIU.
yards in that game against FIU last year.
Yeah, he was good. He was all right, actually. If I do recall, I think Maine really just focused on running the ball a lot, which it worked out pretty well in their defense. So, but no, this is a playbook that Coach Mack mentioned that it opens up a little bit more and allows them to kind of throw the ball, sling it a little bit more. I mean, we were just talking about. I mean, this guy is literally leading the league and leading all FCS in passing yards and passing touchdowns, and I believe I want to say even pass efficiency. He's 6th in pass efficiency. So yeah, I mean he's really good. Yeah, he's in a very good situation, I believe. We'll listen to the interview in a bit, but it said the guy was talking about how his brother is the quarterback's coach over there and pass game quarterback, I believe is what it is. So yeah, definitely a good quarterback for the most part. Going back to what kind of we were saying earlier about dual threats and in the pocket, this is a very in the pocket quarterback. He's not going to leave the pocket, and that's what they need. They need to make them uncomfortable. This is the game. This is a game where the defensive line really needs to show up and show out. This is where you need to see guys like Keegan Davis and Eddie Walls really show up and pressure the quarterback. You need a Jermaine Carter, who's a big guy, a Quaylen Hill, who's been taking a lot of those reps at the nose guard spot. That's where you need guys to really pressure a quarterback, kind of like what you did with Labus, where you made him uncomfortable. You made him get out of the pocket, scramble a little bit. Robertson is not a fast guy whatsoever, so it should allow you to it should give him FIU some time. Now, again, their offensive linemen, I'm not sure how they are right now. Obviously, we'll get a better look at it on Saturday, but he is a very, very good quarterback if in the pocket.
And he gets the ball out fast, too.
And on top of that, I mean, you have Josh Derry, who's a very good wide receiver. He was recently named their conference player of the week or co-player of the week on the offensive side of the ball this season already, with 16 receptions for 362 yards and 4 touchdowns. He is really good. And then obviously the running backs, they have a couple guys right now who've ran already for over 100 yards, and Rodney Nelson and Mekhi Green. Coach Mack was saying there's a guy that's like 230 pounds. I can't quite find him right now. Actually, I've just found him. Stone. I'm not even going to try to say the last name, but he's a big guy. And if Monmouth wants to find some success in this case, they may have to use him a little bit.
Oh, you're referring to the running back from originally from Harvard?
Let me see. Yes.
It is Sony Ento, the former Harvard Crimson, now member of the Monmouth Hawks. By the way, the CAA in general, very fun conference to watch, especially considering that Delaware's coming over next season to join Conference USA. Monmouth takes on Delaware in a couple of weeks, so it'll be interesting to see how this all connects in the future. But something else about Robertson, he just gets the ball out as fast as possible. I mean, his time in the pocket before he throws the ball is very, very short, and obviously it's very frustrating for defensive lines to combat that. So here's a weird question, Kevin. FIU's favored by 14 points. I think the line has not changed. It's still 14.
It is. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
If FIU doesn't blow them out, if it's a similar instance to that game against, say, Bryant, where it came down to overtime, is this going to be considered maybe not a loss, because it's not, but a failure if they don't just absolutely beat the brakes out of this FCS squad?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said, I think it's worth noting that in the 2 years Coach McIntyre has been here at FIU, the first one was against Bryant. It was a 1-point win in overtime.
Yeah.
The second one came against Maine, which is a 2-point win, 14-12. So, I mean, if you're Coach Mack, you're trying to blow the brakes out of these guys, and you really have to, because you kind of think about it. I mean, Coach Mack blew out Central Michigan, which I think they're better than Monmouth.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, you kind of should. You should.
Yeah.
You really should. I mean, ideally, you would like to drop 50 points, which, I mean, I'm not asking you to do. I mean, if you win 35-6 or 7, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good going into conference play.
Yeah.
And again, I think at the end of the day, you need to understand a win is a win, and it depends how individual players play in some point of the game. For example, if Q1 throws for over 300 passing yards, he's never done that before, I think. That would be a pretty successful game overall, even if he scored 2 touchdowns. If the offensive line doesn't allow a sack, that's another pretty successful part of the game. If Shamari Lawrence looks like the Shamari Lawrence that we were told he was going to look like, that's pretty good. If you get some questions answered, if you see some improvements from one week to another and it's still not a blowout, I would feel pretty good.
Yeah, because the competition is going to ramp up very quickly. You have La Tech, who we've seen mixed results for, but right for that, you have to travel to Lynchburg to take on the Flames. So the gap from, say, Monmouth, an FCS opponent, to the best team in Conference USA and maybe a top 25 member by the time it's all said and done, you need to look good. And if you were to score 50 points, I mean, 100 points to start off your tenure at the Pit Bull Stadium, I mean, damn, that's good. The problem is Monmouth might score some points too. They have a scary offense that can compete with anybody. The question is their defense, which has been suspect. They gave up 40 points back to back to start the season. Can they stop Jenkins and this offense? We'll see. And we'll see what our guest for the episode has to say about the matchup. It is none other than Steve Edelson, a beat writer for the Asbury Park Press, the local newspaper in West New Jersey, right? I should say East New Jersey, covering the Monmouth Hawks. And I had a good chat with him talking about what to expect from this squad. So without further ado, Let's hear from Edelson and his perspective on this game between FIU and Monmouth. All righty, welcome everybody. I hope you're enjoying our episode of the Paws Up preview so far. Now it's time to talk about our opponent for this week, the Monmouth Hawks. And to welcome into the show is none other than Steve Edelson from Asbury Park Press, who covers Monmouth. And so far, it's been an interesting season for the Hawks. Steve, just how are you doing so far covering the Hawks?
Good. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Jake. And yeah, it's been a little bit of an up and down season for Monmouth so far, but they're a young team, and I think as always, for an FCS team to go down and play an FBS team, that's a big thrill for them and a big game. So I know they're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and allow me to welcome you guys to being the second ever opponent that FIU will take on at Pitbull Stadium down in the 305. Should be a lot of fun. Want to talk to you about Kevin Callahan, right? The head coach of Monmouth. He's been there for 32 years, which is insane to think about having a coaching tenure last that long. What have you noticed from Coach Callahan and how he's handling this season after going 4-7 last year, which I would consider to be a slight blemish in what has been, otherwise very great past few decades for the program?
Yeah, well, Kevin Callahan is the only coach Monmouth has ever known. He started the program literally a startup in 1992. They played their first game in 1993 and have really risen up through the subdivision ranks to get to where they are now. And so he really, he built this team. He built this program. Yes, last year was a tough pill to swallow. That was their second year in the CAA. And I think what they're finding out was, they had played in the Big South. So they played some good teams there. Kennesaw State was very good and a few others. But here, I think in the CAA, just a lot more depth, a lot more really good teams. And, it has taken them a little while to kind of sort it out, but I think they're on the right direction. And I think Coach Callahan is really leaning on a lot of young guys this year because I think they know that's the direction they have to go in. They've got to really develop some good young players, and I think that's what they're doing now. But yeah, Coach Cal is really a class act, and he's Mr. Monmouth, really.
Right. And, we've been keeping a sharp eye on the CAA here at FIU. Of course, Maine and Bryant, our last two FCS opponents, not to mention Delaware is going to be making the jump from the CAA to Conference USA next season, along with Missouri State from FCS. So, yeah, it's a fun conference. Definitely one to keep an eye out for if you're an FIU fan or even Conference USA fan in general, just to see what's coming. So, let's get into Derek Robertson, right? He transferred to Monmouth after spending quite a few years with Maine. He actually played in last year's game against FIU for the Black Bears, and he put up 213 yards. Not too bad. So far this season, he's looked electric and has led, according to you yourself, Steve, a very explosive offense, and the numbers don't lie. What's been clicking for him under this system?
Well, he's a very experienced quarterback. Now, full disclosure, his older brother, Jimmy, is Monmouth's quarterback coach and passing game coordinator. So, that was a good bit of help in the recruiting, I'm sure. And he threw for almost 3,000 yards at Maine last year. So this was a veteran, quarterback. He happens to have 2 years left. So good for Monmouth. They'll have him next year. But he's a very cerebral guy. He really understands the offense. And I think one thing that people have taken away from him so far is he has a lightning quick release. He's getting the ball out. That's been very important behind an offensive line with two new starters. But I think the biggest thing for him with Monmouth, which really probably since 2017 has had one of the better FCS offenses. They've had a really good string of quarterbacks come through there. But I think what Derek Robertson has this year is a collection of probably 5 or 6 young, really talented receivers.
Yeah.
They are running all over the field, and he is finding them, and they are gaining more confidence with each game. They're averaging well over 500 yards a game now, and the passing game is number 2 in the country. So I think for Derek Robertson, it's been picking up the system very quickly, understanding it, and having some guys downfield he can throw to.
Oh, all right, and yeah, you just said it yourself. The Hawks feature a pair of returning wide receivers from last season. You have T.J. Spate and Josh Derry, who have both gotten out to some very fast starts this season. I don't know, from a surface level, they seem to be the dynamic duo of this receiving core so far for Monmouth. Would you say that they're maybe the biggest offensive weapons that Robertson has at his disposal, or who are some other names?
Well, I think Josh Derry has really stepped up. Now, the reality is none of these guys played a lot last year. You know, they had Dymere Miller, who is at Rutgers now. He was a finalist for the Walter Payton Award last year. Asante Kearney was another very good receiver they have. So these guys got a taste of it last year, but this is their first chance to really step up. And I think Josh Derry, who's a sophomore, really fast. You know, he has been a real difference maker so far. You know, he took 194 yards and 56 yards against Maine. He's been very good. TJ Spate probably had the most experience of any of the receivers. Again, and he took a jet sweep and went 89 yards 2 games ago. So I think those guys have really started to step up, and a lot of the younger guys like Gavin Nelson and Trey Neal, have really started to kind of follow along behind them. They have a guy named Max James, who is an older player but came from a lower level program, transferred in this year. He's 6'3". He's made some nice catches. So I think Derry and Spate are really the 2 young guns right now for this group.
A player you've been very excited to see join Monmouth from the transfer portal has been Sony Ento, the running back from the University of Harvard. So far this season, he's looked all right. I mean, Monmouth does have a bunch of transfers coming in. So looking at the transfer portal, how did Monmouth do heading into the season? Who are some other members that FIU should keep an eye out?
Sony Ento is an interesting case in that this is actually his second season with the team. He was here last year when they had Jaden Sheridan, who 2 years in a row was the leading rusher in FCS football. Now, what Sony Ento is a powerful back. He scored 14 touchdowns last year. He's really, really hard to stop in short yardage and goal line situations. But he also has flash speed. He broke 195 yards last year as well.
Right.
So this was kind of his opportunity this year to be more of an every down back. Now, the situation has been, though, Monmouth has some young running backs too, and one of them, sophomore Rodney Nelson, has really been the starting back. And he's quick. He can really find the hole, and they've kind of used him more. And Makai Green, who's the fastest guy on the team, but he's small, probably 175 pounds. They've been getting him the ball more. So that has kind of limited what Sony Ento has been able to do. He really has been more short yardage, but I would not be surprised if you start to see him a little more. He's a very experienced back, and he really is a good example for all of these young kids. And I think that's maybe the most important reason he's here. But he's a very good running back too, and he's going to get the ball in some very big situations for them.
All right, so let's talk about now Monmouth's defense, right? Obviously, it's very early into the season, but maybe they could be an Achilles heel of the squad after giving up 40 points in back-to-back games to start the season against Eastern Washington and Lafayette. While they did limit Maine to just 22 points, I mean, what do you think has gone wrong for the defense so far this season?
Well, this actually has been a running theme for Monmouth for a little while now, a few years, in that they always have just one of the best offenses in the country. Right. And it all comes down to, whether their defense can stop anybody. And that really is the case this year. I mean, you look at the FIU game. I mean, really, Monmouth's offense is going to move the ball. They're going to score points on anybody. But, if they scored 24, 28 points against FIU, can their defense hold FIU under 40?
Right.
I don't know. It's going to be tough. They're young. They believe that they have some talent, but they really have 5 sophomores and a freshman getting really important snaps. So, I think what they have to hope is that the main game, the way they played in that game, can be like a confidence builder for them. And they clearly tackled better. They got to the ball better. So I think the confidence factor is going to be big for them, and I think that's really the biggest takeaway from Maine is can their young guys take a step forward now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that Maine game because I did want to briefly talk about it. Monmouth played a really near perfect game, both offensively, defensively, and even on special teams with that return touchdown. Just what were your biggest takeaways from that game? And you had mentioned it earlier. Was it more of Monmouth is improving as the season go on, or was it because of the opponent that they played?
I think the biggest factor as I look back on the Maine win, really, you would have to go back to the end of the Lafayette game a week before that. Now, Lafayette's nationally ranked, right? I think there's 17 in the FCS polls this week. They're very good. They're the Patriot League champions. They're the favorites to do it again, and they have everybody back from last year. And Monmouth had them beaten, right? They're up late. They're up 2 touchdowns with a minute to go. And they gave up 2 scores in the last minute of the game. And I think the defense and even the offense, I think everyone took it upon themselves that can't happen again. We're better than that. And they really came out and stuck it to Maine. As you said, they really played a perfect game. Maine was never in that game. And I think it really traces back to the end of the Lafayette game. They were really disappointed about that. They should have won that game. I mean, listen, they lost the opener. They had to fly across the country and play Eastern Washington, right? A Big Sky team on the road. Never easy. They've played at Montana. They've played at Montana State. They knew what they were up against, and that was going to be tough against a veteran Eastern Washington team. So they lost that game, but they shouldn't have lost the Lafayette game, and I think that's what led to the Maine game.
All righty, so it's a tough ask, and I think you already alluded to the answer earlier in this interview. But I'll just ask you this: if Monmouth were to walk into Pit Bull Stadium and upset the Panthers in their homecoming game, nonetheless, they need to do blank.
Well, I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to be able to get some penetration and get near the quarterback, do a good job against the run. I think a lot of what happens for Monmouth is going to happen up front, right? They're going to have to. They played really well in the trenches against Maine. They're going to have to do that again. And the offensive line is going to have to open some holes for the running game. As good as you throw the ball in college football, you're going to have to run the ball at some point. And Monmouth has struggled to do that. So I think their play on the line is going to have to be, important. But again, I mean, this is a big game for Monmouth from the standpoint that, these kids, I'm sure most of these kids think they should be playing FBS football. And here's my chance to show people that right now. And listen, for mid-major programs like this, the payday is important too. So it's a big game on a lot of different levels for Monmouth. Yeah. But I think if they can play well in the trenches against an FBS team, I think their skill guys are good enough to hang with them and it can make it a game.
Alrighty, Steve. I mean, thank you so much for spending some time talking about Monmouth. If you go ahead and drop your ats on social media so that FIU fans can check out your work and prepare themselves for what to expect, I'd be very appreciative.
Oh, well, Twitter at Steve Edelson, SteveEdelson APP. So it's at Steve Edelson APP.
All righty. Again, Steve, thank you so much. Best of luck to the Hawks in this homecoming game. And let's get you right back to the remainder of the Paws Up preview as Kevin and I go over around FIU athletics, Conference USA predictions, and game picks. All righty. That was Steve Edelson. Make sure to go give him a follow on social media and check out his work with the Asbury Park Press to make sure you're dialed in for this matchup against FIU and Monmouth. Now, Kevin, it's weird. It feels like the shortest episodes are against these FCS squads. There's just not a whole lot to talk about. You kind of go in there with the expectations that FIU should win this, right? It's their homecoming game. They're coming off a bad loss. The team's probably pissed because we saw them pissed after that FAU game. So just your final thoughts on this game. What does FIU need to do right? And what do they need to capitalize on with this Monmouth squad?
I think we already know what we're going to get from the passing offense. I mean, we saw the playbook pretty open, honestly, during that FAU game, and even Central Michigan wasn't as conservative as we saw it even last season and even in week 1. So, but honestly, I really would like them to establish the run game a little bit quicker this time around. I mean, they didn't do that last time against FAU, which credit to them. They established the pass game pretty early on, and I was very surprised to see them do that. Usually on the first play of a drive, and everyone knows this, you kind of almost always run the ball just to get some yardage, set yourself up for a first down after that. But they did not do that. They went out there and passed the ball against FAU. They attacked their cornerbacks who have struggled at some points this season. But again, I think it's just established to run. Offensive line played very well last week against FAU. Now you just kind of hope that it continues over to the game here against Monmouth, and they open some gaps.
Yeah, because before you know it, FIU needs to look good. They need to capitalize on this game, as well as the one next week against La Tech, before they head on the road to take on the Liberty Flames in Lynchburg on October 8th, which is going to be the ultimate test for where this team is right now going into October and going into the rest of the CUSA slate. By the way, Kevin, that game against Liberty, October 8th, the exact same day and time as the Florida Panthers home opener against Boston. They're going to be unveiling the banner at Amerant Bank Arena. I'm going to need it to be ultra rainy, lightning everywhere in Liberty so that we can maybe move that game some other time. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be beautiful and sunny. But regardless, FIU wants to highlight that game against Liberty, but can't look too far ahead. See what they do against Monmouth. So, alrighty, now it's time to get into the tail end of the show here, starting off with a look around FIU athletics. What's going on in the 305? So let's get right into it. Start off with men's soccer here, okay? They have a 2-3-1 record. They're coming off a win against Central Arkansas. It's funny because there's technically there will be 2 games going on at the same time, FIU and Monmouth, as well as FIU taking on the University of South Florida. Thankfully, that's over in Tampa, but still, it's a conference matchup. I believe the first of the season. That's going to be at 7 o'clock. You can watch on ESPN Plus. Maybe flip back and forth between the Monmouth game and South Florida if you have the opportunity. Their next game at home is going to be all the way on Sunday, September the 29th at 7 o'clock when they take on Tulsa. So, women's soccer currently has a 5-3 record. They're coming off, at the time of recording, 2 back-to-back wins against Southeastern Louisiana and SEMO. We'll see how they do against Middle Tennessee this past Thursday, but their next upcoming matchup is going to be against the Liberty Flames on Friday, September 27th at 6 o'clock. That's going to be over in Lynchburg. They'll be back home over at the Leyva Family Field to take on New Mexico State on Thursday, October the 3rd at 7 o'clock. That game can also be seen on ESPN Plus. Now, let's get into volleyball, who have a 2-8 record to start the season. They are coming off a win against Stetson in the South Carolina tournament. So now we get into the 305 challenge for women's volleyball. Again, at the time of recording, we'll see how they did against both Texas Tech and Arkansas. But their next upcoming game will also be on Saturday at 3 o'clock against the Miami Hurricanes. That's going to be in Coral Gables. It can be seen on ACC Network, which is really cool. They'll then take on the UTEP Miners on Friday, September the 27th to the 28th over at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. So that was your brief look. By the way, very cool giveaway at an upcoming volleyball game, Kevin. It was that FIU jersey that we've seen a bunch. That 12th Panther jersey that I know circles around a lot. That's going to be a cool giveaway. So make sure to check that out if you can. So, alrighty. Now it's time for This Week in Conference USA. As we check out how our friends and foes are doing, let me pull up the schedule and see how we did. Now, Kevin and I, we both picked the exact same teams this week from top to bottom. So let's share that screen. Here we go. So unfortunately, overall, I don't think it was a very good week for Conference USA. I'm just going to say that right now. Louisiana.
Aside from Liberty.
Yeah, NC State, they beat La Tech. That was a lot closer than we thought it was going to be because NC State's quarterback went down, but still the Wolfpack backups took care of Louisiana Tech at the end, 30-20. It was closer than what the experts thought. Liberty dominated UTEP. We're not surprised there, 28-10. FAU beat FIU. We know that. Sam Houston, I thought this game was going to be closer because Hawaii's got a good squad, but the Bearcats, they look good. Man, I'm getting worried about those Bearcats, Kevin. They could be
Telling you, man, they're good. They're good.
They could maybe be the second best team in the conference right now. The way they're playing, they could be number 2. 31-13 over the Hawaii. And this is disappointing. Jacksonville State, who has had just an absolute hellish start to the season, loses to Eastern Michigan, I believe in overtime, by a score of 37-34. Just, Kevin, what is going on with the Gamecocks, man?
I think they've just gotten figured out, honestly. I mean, their offense got figured out. It's good coaching, but I don't know. Maybe Jack State isn't as good as we thought they were.
Which is surprising. I thought they were going to be like the second best team in Conference USA. Now they might be one of the worst. I mean, record-wise, they are. You know, they're 0-3.
Yeah,
so.
They're 0-3.
San Jose State lost to Kennesaw State, or they beat Kennesaw State 31-10. I don't think we're too surprised there, though. Jesus, I really want to see Kennesaw State win a game, man. I want, not against us, but I want to see them win a game. You know,
please not against us.
Western Kentucky won the 100 miles of hate rivalry pretty easily, 49-21. Again, not too shocked about that. Middle Tennessee's, I think they're going to have a rough season. Western's not bad. I think it's going to be Sam Houston and Western for that 2 spot in Conference USA. It's going to be a nice battle there, assuming things go right for Liberty. And lastly, oh my gosh, I thought New Mexico State was going to lose. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. 48-0. My
just
gosh.
proves the point that the conference poll was wrong. New Mexico State is not that good.
Yeah, it's not. No, they're not that good. And
just granted, this is against a G5 team, by the way, and they'll be. We'll see how this whole Pac-12
well,
thing.
A G5 team that's going to be moving to P5 later.
Well, wait, we don't know if we know that the Pac-12 is going to be P5. So
well, it's yeah,
maybe G6.
it's weird.
So we'll see what happens.
They still the Pac-12 still needs to get those last 2 teams to even be considered a conference. They'll probably get them within the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We'll probably know what all that's going to be and how Conference USA might change in the process as well. You know, but
yeah, there can be changes.
Record-wise, this past week, we both went with the exact same teams, and we both got 6-2 records. We both took FIU over FAU, which obviously sucks. We both had Jackson State over Eastern Michigan, and they let us down once again. So, season record-wise, Kevin stands with a 22-4 record. I am at 20-6. So, I'm going to need to get back on track here, Kevin. And it starts this week in Conference USA. Keep in mind that I believe it's Kennesaw State who has the week off.
Yep.
So we'll start off in at 3:00 between Southern Miss and Jacksonville State. Now, if Jacksonville State is as good as I still think they can be, they should win this game. I don't know if this is their homecoming game or not, but they need to win this so flipping badly. And Southern Miss is not a great football team. I'm going to go, please let them win. I'm going Jacksonville State.
Jacksonville State will go 0-4. I'm taking Southern Miss.
Oh, my good gosh. I don't blame you. But it just, it hurts. It hurts.
I just think they were figured out.
Yeah.
Now they need to adjust.
All right.
I think
Duke is taking on Middle Tennessee at 4:00. I don't think Duke is an amazing ACC team, but they are good.
They're pretty good. They were up and coming.
They barely beat UConn. But still not too shabby. I'm going to go Duke in this one. Middle Tennessee is just not great. So
yep, I'll take Duke.
UTEP is taking on Colorado State. I believe Colorado State is also joining the new Pac-12. They got a good team. They didn't look good against Colorado, but maybe the Buffaloes are figuring something out over there in Boulder. Regardless, I'm never picking UTEP ever again. Give me Colorado State.
Colorado State will be without their top wide receiver, Torrey Horton. So
I feel like even their backups could take on UTEP.
I'm taking UTEP.
Really? Dead ass. I mean, thanks, Kevin.
Colorado State's coming off a tough loss. I don't really know how much.
Listen. I need to get back into the total thing. So thanks, Kevin, for that. We'll save FIU and Monmouth, obviously. This could be an amazing game. Liberty against Eastern Carolina. It's Conference USA versus the world when it comes to who takes on Liberty in the non-con schedule, and this is a great matchup. All things considered, Eastern Carolina is a good squad. I think they're 4th in the AAC right now. They're just behind Memphis, Army, and Navy. I think it's going to be really close, but I will go with the Flames here.
Liberty has not convinced me a lot, honestly.
They haven't.
They played close with Campbell, so as well with was it New Mexico State?
Yeah, they keep finding ways to win, though. They keep finding ways to win.
And this is where I think East Carolina finds a way to win. They will hand Liberty their first loss in Conference USA.
Okay, it's funny. We went with the same pick.
I like Eastern Carolina too because
they're a good team.
They're a good team. Transfer Jake Garcia, who's also spent some time in Miami. And I think they're building something fun there. They were App State edged them out. In the last game, and that's who Liberty has to play next. So that's going to be the best G5 game of the year, in my opinion. This one's a very close number 2.
Well, I don't know. Liberty versus App State next week is going to be absolutely.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
The best G5 game of the year. This is going to be a really close.
This is like a preview in a weird sort of way.
Exactly.
Okay. It's funny. We went with the same teams last week, but now this week we got 2 games where we picked other opponents. Let's see if it continues. Tulsa's taking on La Tech. I feel like this is more a trap game for Tulsa than it is really anything for Louisiana Tech. Tulsa has not had a great start to the season. They're more on the bottom side of the AAC, but I don't know. There's just something about Louisiana Tech that doesn't really drive me interest in them, not to mention the fact that they could even win this. I'm going to go Tulsa.
Really?
I
don't think Tulsa's been that good for the last couple of years.
Yeah, they haven't had a great start this year. They lost to Eastern Carolina, but actually, I take that back. They that was last year. I take that back. They beat an FCS team to start the season. They lost to Arkansas State. Then they got pummeled by Oklahoma State. Though to be fair, Oklahoma State is a really good team. They're like top 25. So
last year, Tulsa went 4-8. I'm gonna take La Tech. I think they'll be able to hold on. They've been impressive the first couple of weeks.
They have.
I mean, that offense is still taking on the same defense of a power conference. So I know the quarterback obviously makes an impact there, but I mean, this La Tech team still I think would have gotten pretty blown out had they even with the backup. But I'm taking La Tech.
Next up is New Mexico State and Sam Houston. I believe that's the only full conference game of the week of this week. I'm not much to think about. I'm going Sam Houston.
Me too.
Yeah.
This to be honest to be one of those 48-0 blowouts.
Damn. Okay. All right, Kev. I feel it though. I feel it. And then Toledo is taking on Western Kentucky. I haven't done much research on Toledo. I'm going to keep it above you, but I don't know. I've really liked Western Kentucky this season. They have a great offense, and I think that they'll take care of Toledo.
Not an easy task for Western. They're down their quarterback with TJ Finley now out for a couple of weeks. Thankfully, they do have Caden Veldkamp, who was the offensive.
He was great.
Yes, and then Toledo are the champions of the MAC. So I really don't know who's going to win this one. This may be one of the better games of the week. I'm going to go with Toledo just because maybe it'll take Veldkamp a little bit longer to get used to the swing of things.
Yeah.
And Toledo, you just can't. Toledo just came off a huge win against
Mississippi State. Yeah. Is Veldkamp the best backup quarterback in Conference USA?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
he won the mobile game last year.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's see. Just because I have the graphic here, let's see what the Conference USA podcast roundtable thinks for this week. Everyone thinks Duke's. It's a sweep for Duke over Middle Tennessee, for Colorado State over UTEP, and for FIU over Monmouth. March to the Pod has a couple of upsets there at the bottom. They're taking Eastern Carolina. They're only pod that picked them, and they're the only pod that picked Toledo over Western Kentucky.
Wow, Jesus Christ. Yeah. You guys, Toledo literally won the MAC last year.
I know, but Western looks good. I don't know what to say. We're more familiar with Western, and they look good. I mean, I don't know. They
look all right.
We'll see. I think it's Blue Raider Podcast that is currently leading the standings. I don't know. I can't remember who's in second place, but I know we're in third.
We're in third? Oh.
Yeah, I think we're in third after this last week because we got the Eastern Michigan and FIU games wrong. So it is what it is. So
okay.
All righty. We have reached that time, Kevin. The big question: who will win? Now, let's start with college football 25. But as I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking right now, yeah, Monmouth isn't in the game. No FCS teams. I hope they get that ready for the next college football game where they actually have FCS schools in the game. I really want to see that. But thankfully someone made Monmouth in Team Builder, so I downloaded that. Let me preface this by saying
this has the players and everything.
I have no idea. I don't think so. I think the players are randoms. This is going to be the most unscientific EA sim we've ever done. But yeah, let's
it was closer than a.
I know a lot of people thought this was going to be a blowout, but this team said, just when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions.
It's so true, Reese. I mean, they had a lot.
Okay. Don't ask me why Monmouth was ranked 13th. I have absolutely no idea what that means.
Oh, I think the sim is what, 3-1?
Yeah. Yeah, the Sims
only
3-1.
lost. The only loss, I think, is Central, right? And ended up being
the only game they didn't predict right was in FIU over Indiana. They got the others right.
No. What I'm asking is, who did they have? Like, they had us beating Indiana, losing to Central, and
we beat Central in that EA clip. It was like 27-24, but we got the job done against Central.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they had FAU beating FIU, which they got right. Now they have a blowout. I mean, 24-6 is not. Kind of sounds like a snooze fest if you ask me, but
a little bit.
Yeah. So, alrighty then. Let's bring up the big question: who's winning, and what's the score between FIU and Monmouth? Kevin, as always, we'll start with you. How's this game going to go down?
I'm not totally convinced this is going to be a blowout by any means, but I feel pretty good nonetheless. I mean, Derek Robertson. FIU has some pretty quick guys on the edges who I think could really stop him. I mean, Josh Derry's going to be welcome to Deuce Island, which let's see if he's able to get out of that one alive. So I'm still taking FIU, obviously. I'm going to go with a 45-16 victory for FIU.
Wow. 45 points. That's a good showing.
I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah. Okay. I am in the similar boat. I think FIU is going to win this. I'm not going to be like, oh, FIU is going to destroy them. From what Steven said, Monmouth's going to get their points. They have a good offense, and FIU's defense. You know, they're mad at what happened last week against FAU. So it's going to be a clash of the Titans between a really good FCS offense and a really mad FBS defense. FIU's going to win. And the final score is going to be FIU 30, Monmouth 10. 30-10. So, I mean,
blowout.
They would cover, you know. So, yeah, it's 14. So,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, final thoughts, Kev, before we wrap up here, what to expect. I mean, it's homecoming. Should be a lot of fun festivities before the game. Obviously, I think we'll be at that Blueprint Collective tailgating party. Should be a lot of fun there. And then, yeah, it's going to be all ships set to sail once that game kicks off.
FIU has not won a homecoming game since 2019. So this could be the first.
There's some incentive.
Against Charlotte, they have since lost to Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, UConn, and Liberty. Albeit, I mean, those have been pretty tough matchups for homecoming.
I'll never understand why they went with Liberty for a
first FCS opponent they face. Honestly, it looks like ever. Oh no, since 2008, I believe Arkansas State. Is Arkansas State an FBS?
No, they're in the Sun Belt.
Oh, here we go. Holy Cross. That was the first. That's been the only FCS opponent they faced in homecoming, unless I guess Louisiana, but those didn't look like FCS opponents. So first FCS opponent they faced in homecoming since 2003. It's been a while.
Already then, 6 o'clock kickoff between the FIU Panthers and the Monmouth Hawks at Pitbull Stadium. If you can't watch the game, it's going to be over on ESPN Plus. And
Goldie's on the call.
Goldie's on the call with Kimbo, right? With Kimbo?
No, with Corey Brooks.
With Corey Brooks is the radio for that. Is it? Are we gonna see Billy? Are we gonna see Jackson?
Billy and Jackson will be on there. Yep.
Nice. I might need to tune into the radio. Just take a listen to that for a while. I mean, that should be a fun duo.
Billy's finally got his FIU win.
There you go. We'll see what happens. All right, everybody, enjoy the game. We'll be back for halftime and post game reports. Hopefully, it's going to be a great one. We're going to be positive, but until then, enjoy the game and pause up.
Pause up, baby.